She stood there, trembling, the truth finally exposed. "I know what you did," Rosa whispered, clutching the evidence in her shaking hands. The billionaire's perfect fiancée turned slowly, her porcelain mask cracking for the first time. No one had ever dared challenge her, until now, *. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more dramatic tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's dive deeper into this world of secrets, power, and unexpected courage. Part 1, The Glass Tower. Alexander Reed's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the gleaming obsidian tower in downtown Manhattan. At 42, he had built Reed Enterprises from nothing into a tech empire worth billions. His success story was legendary: the orphaned boy who coded his first program at 11, who slept on friends' couches through college, who now employed over 20,000 people worldwide. But for all his wealth, Alexander was lonely. His engagement to Victoria Sinclair, the daughter of a banking dynasty, had been front-page news for months. Victoria was perfect on paper: Harvard Business School, impeccable family connections, philanthropic foundation bearing her name, and beauty that turned heads everywhere she went. Rosa Mendez arrived at the penthouse on a rainy Tuesday morning. 26 years old, she had emigrated from Guatemala 5 years earlier, sending most of her earnings back to support her mother and younger siblings. The employment agency had warned her, this position paid exceptionally well, but the standards were impossibly high. 3 housekeepers had been dismissed in the past month alone. "You'll report directly to Ms. Sinclair," the house manager explained, leading Rosa through rooms larger than her entire apartment. "She prefers staff to be invisible." Rosa nodded, clutching her small bag of cleaning supplies. She needed this job desperately after her previous employer had moved overseas. Her brother's college tuition payment was due next month. Victoria swept into the room like a winter wind, beautiful but chilling. Her cream designer suit was immaculate, her blonde hair pulled into a sleek chignon. She barely glanced at Rosa. "The East Wing needs attention before tonight's dinner. Ensure the silver is properly polished this time." She spoke while scrolling through her phone, never making eye contact. "Yes, Ms. Sinclair," Rosa replied, but Victoria had already departed, leaving only the lingering scent of expensive perfume. That evening, as Rosa polished crystal glasses in the kitchen, she overheard Alexander's warm laugh. It surprised her. In magazines, he always looked so serious. She peeked through the doorway and saw him helping the chef taste test a sauce, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. "Too much salt?" he asked, genuinely concerned. "Perhaps a touch, Mr. Reed," the chef admitted. "Then we fix it. No problem is unsolvable." Alexander smiled, and Rosa noticed the kindness in his eyes, so at odds with the cold efficiency of his fiancée. When he turned and caught Rosa watching, she quickly ducked back into the kitchen, embarrassed. But moments later, he appeared in the doorway. "You're new," he said, not accusingly but with interest. "Yes, sir. Rosa Mendez. First day." He extended his hand. "Alexander Reed. Welcome to our home." Our home. But as Rosa would soon discover, this was Victoria's domain, not a shared sanctuary. And beneath the perfect surface, dangerous currents were flowing. Part 2, Cracks in the Facade. 3 weeks into her employment, Rosa had learned the rhythms of the penthouse. Alexander worked long hours but was unfailingly kind when present. Victoria maintained a packed schedule of charity events and social appearances, returning home to issue directives before disappearing into her private suite. The staff whispered about the couple. "They sleep in separate bedrooms," the cook confided one evening. "Been engaged for 8 months but never set a date." "It's a business arrangement," the driver suggested. "Her family's connections, his money." Rosa tried to ignore the gossip, focusing instead on her work. But one afternoon, while cleaning Victoria's private study, a room usually kept locked, she accidentally knocked over a stack of folders. As she gathered the scattered papers, a name caught her eye: Reed Enterprises acquisition plan. Beneath it, a document detailed the systematic transfer of controlling shares from Alexander to Victoria's family trust upon their marriage. Rosa's heart raced. She wasn't business savvy, but even she understood what this meant. Victoria wasn't marrying Alexander, she was acquiring his company. She carefully replaced the documents, troubled by her discovery. That same evening, she overheard Victoria on the phone in the garden terrace. "Daddy, it's all proceeding as planned. The prenup negotiations are stalling exactly where we want them. No, he suspects nothing. He's brilliant with code but naive with people. Yes, by this time next year, Reed Enterprises will be under Sinclair management." Rosa's hands trembled as she folded linens nearby. Should she say something? It wasn't her place. She needed this job. And who would believe a housekeeper over Victoria Sinclair? The next morning, Rosa was cleaning Alexander's home office when he returned unexpectedly. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed. I'll come back later." "No, stay. I'm just grabbing some files." He rubbed his temples. "Actually, would you mind bringing some coffee? The strongest possible?" When Rosa returned with the coffee, she found him staring at a photograph, a much younger Alexander with an older woman, both smiling widely. "My mother," he explained, noticing Rosa's glance. "She passed away 10 years ago. Cancer." "I'm sorry," Rosa said softly. She had a beautiful smile. Alexander looked surprised, then pleased. "She did. She worked as a night nurse. Raised me alone. Always said, 'Alex, be kind to everyone. You never know what battles they're fighting.' She sounds wise. She would have liked you." He sipped the coffee. "Victoria thinks I should put this away. Says it doesn't match the decor." Rosa couldn't help herself. "It's your home too, no?" Alexander's expression shifted, something vulnerable crossing his face. "Sometimes I wonder." He shook his head. "Sorry, I shouldn't." "Mr. Reed," Rosa interrupted, then hesitated. "The right person, they don't ask you to put away your mother's picture." Their eyes met, a moment of unexpected connection. Then Victoria's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Alexander? The Jacobsons are waiting for our call." The moment shattered. Alexander straightened, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the billionaire mask. "Coming, Victoria." As Rosa slipped out, she caught Victoria's cold stare. That afternoon, Rosa was assigned to clean the basement storage rooms, a clear demotion. Part 3, The Hidden Truth. Days passed. Rosa was kept away from the main living areas, assigned to laundry and storage duties. Victoria barely acknowledged her existence, but Rosa felt her watchful presence. One evening, while returning linens to the third-floor closet, Rosa overheard raised voices from Victoria's study. "You changed the proposal without consulting me," Alexander said, his usually calm voice tight with anger. "It was a minor adjustment to protect both our interests," Victoria replied smoothly. "Transferring 20% of my voting shares to your family trust is not minor, Victoria. Darling, it's standard protection. My father's attorneys insist." "Your father. Always your father. I'm beginning to think I'm marrying him, not you." A tense silence followed. "Perhaps we should postpone the announcement dinner," Victoria finally said, her voice carefully controlled. "Perhaps we should postpone the entire engagement." The sound of breaking glass made Rosa jump. She hurried away, heart pounding. The next morning, the penthouse was eerily quiet. Alexander had left for an early meeting. Victoria summoned Rosa to her suite. "There was an unfortunate accident in my study last night," Victoria said, her perfect composure restored. Clean it up. And Rosa? I expect absolute discretion from staff. Yes, Ms. Sinclair. In the study, Rosa found a shattered crystal paperweight and scattered documents. As she carefully gathered the glass, she noticed a flash drive that had fallen behind the desk. Without thinking, she pocketed it. That night in her tiny apartment, curiosity overcame caution. Rosa plugged the drive into her laptop. It contained dozens of files, emails between Victoria and her father, detailed plans for restructuring Reed Enterprises post-acquisition, and most disturbing, a dossier on Alexander that included his medical records, psychological profile, and personal weaknesses. One document made her blood run cold, a report from a private investigator detailing Alexander's mother's death. Contrary to natural causes, the report suggested potential medication tampering at the hospital where she died, a hospital owned by Sinclair Healthcare. The implication was clear but unstated. Victoria's family had information that could destroy Alexander, personally and professionally. Rosa barely slept. By morning, she had made a decision. She copied the files and returned the drive to Victoria's study, slipping it under the desk as if it had remained hidden there. For days, Rosa watched and waited, torn between self-preservation and growing concern for Alexander. Victoria and Alexander maintained a perfect public facade, but the tension between them was palpable. Then came the announcement dinner, a gathering of New York's elite to celebrate the couple's wedding date, finally set for 3 months hence. The penthouse transformed into a showcase of wealth and taste. 50 guests in formal attire, champagne flowing, photographers from select publications permitted for the first hour. Rosa worked behind the scenes, helping serve canapés. She overheard snippets of conversation. Victoria's father looks pleased. Sinclair Banking and Reed Tech, they'll be unstoppable. Alexander seems distracted tonight, don't you think? During a quiet moment, Rosa found herself alone in the kitchen with Alexander, who had escaped the crowd for a breath. Everything okay, Mr. Reed? She asked, noticing his pallor. He loosened his tie slightly. Just needed a moment away from the circus. It's a beautiful party. Is it? He looked at her directly. Rosa, can I ask you something? Do you think people can change? Truly change who they are? The question caught her off guard. I think, people reveal who they truly are, eventually. He nodded slowly. My mother used to say that. That time reveals truth. He straightened his tie. I should get back. As he turned to leave, Rosa made her decision. Mr. Reed, she called softly. Sometimes the truth needs a little help being revealed. He looked back, confused, but Victoria appeared in the doorway. Alexander, everyone's waiting for the toast. Her eyes flicked dismissively over Rosa. The kitchen staff should remain out of sight during the announcement. As they left, Rosa slipped a note into Alexander's jacket pocket, a simple message with her phone number, the truth about Victoria and your mother. Call me when you're alone. Part 4, The Confrontation. The next morning, Rosa arrived at work to find the penthouse in chaos. Victoria was shouting at the security team in the main hall. I want every inch of this place searched. Someone has been in my private files. Rosa kept her head down, proceeding to her duties with a hammering heart. Had Victoria discovered the missing drive? Or had Alexander found her note? By afternoon, Victoria had fired the security chief and was having the entire system upgraded. Alexander was conspicuously absent. As Rosa cleaned the guest bathroom, her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number, Central Park. Bethesda Fountain. 7 p.m. At 7, Rosa sat nervously by the fountain, watching joggers and tourists in the fading light. Alexander appeared, dressed casually in jeans and a dark sweater, almost unrecognizable from the polished executive. I got your note, he said without preamble. What do you know about my mother? Rosa took a deep breath and told him everything: the files, the investigation report, Victoria's plans for his company. As she spoke, Alexander's expression shifted from skepticism to shock to a cold anger she had never seen before. "Do you have proof?" he finally asked. She handed him a USB drive. "Copies of everything." He stared at the small device. "Why are you doing this, Rosa? Victoria could destroy your career. Have you deported, even?" Rosa thought about her family back home, about her brother's education, about the money this job provided. Then she thought about her father's words before she left Guatemala: "Your integrity is the one thing no one can take from you." "Because it's right," she said simply. "And because you deserve to know." Alexander was silent for a long moment. "Thank you," he finally said. "Go home now. Don't come to work tomorrow. I'll make sure you're paid regardless." "What will you do?" His eyes hardened. "What I should have done months ago." The next day, Rosa anxiously watched the financial news. Nothing seemed amiss. She received her regular deposit from the household account with a substantial bonus. But no word from Alexander. 3 days passed. Then a car arrived at her apartment, not a taxi but a private vehicle with a driver. "Mr. Reed requests your presence, Ms. Mendez." Nervous but curious, Rosa allowed herself to be driven back to the Obsidian Tower. But instead of the service entrance, she was escorted through the main lobby, up the private elevator, directly to Alexander's personal study. He was alone, looking both exhausted and energized, like a man who had fought a long battle and emerged victorious. "Rosa," he greeted her warmly. "Please, sit. Is everything okay, Mr. Reed? Where is Ms. Sinclair?" "Victoria has returned to her family's estate in Connecticut." His smile was grim. "Permanently." He explained that after verifying Rosa's information, he had confronted Victoria with evidence of her family's schemes. The engagement was off, the merger cancelled. His legal team was investigating the circumstances of his mother's death. "The Sinclairs underestimated me," he said. "They thought I was just a tech geek who wouldn't understand their financial maneuvers. But I built my company by paying attention to details." "I'm glad you're safe," Rosa said sincerely. "Because of you." He leaned forward. "Rosa, I owe you more than I can express. You risked everything to tell me the truth. Anyone would have." "No," he interrupted. "They wouldn't. 3 other housekeepers worked here. None of them warned me. You showed courage and integrity that's rare in any circle, let alone among New York's elite." He slid a folder across the desk. "I'd like to offer you a new position. Head of Staff Welfare and Ethics Compliance for Reed Enterprises. We have thousands of employees worldwide, many in vulnerable positions. They need someone who understands their challenges and has the courage to speak truth to power." Rosa stared at the offer letter, the salary figure making her dizzy. "But I don't have the qualifications." "You have exactly the qualifications I need. Integrity. Compassion. Courage." He smiled. "The rest can be learned." Part 5, New Beginnings. 1 year later, Rosa stood at the podium in the Reed Enterprises Conference Center, addressing 200 new international employees. "Welcome to your orientation. I'm Rosa Mendez, Director of Employee Advocacy and Ethics. At Reed Enterprises, we believe that every voice matters, from the CEO to the newest intern." From the back of the room, Alexander watched with pride. The past year had transformed both their lives. The Sinclair scandal had rocked the business world, with several family members now facing criminal charges for corporate espionage and fraud. The investigation into his mother's death continued, complex but progressing. Reed Enterprises had emerged stronger, with new ethical guidelines and employee protections that were becoming industry standards. Rosa had proven herself not just competent but exceptional, her natural empathy and moral clarity bringing a dimension to the executive team that had been sorely lacking. After the orientation, Alexander and Rosa walked through the company gardens, a new addition to the headquarters that she had championed. "The Guatemala project launches next month," she reminded him. "The community center will serve over 300 families. Including yours," he added with a smile. Rosa nodded, still amazed at how life had changed. Her mother now managed the educational program at the center. Her brother had graduated and was working as an engineer for Reed's Latin American division. "Sometimes I can't believe how everything turned out," she admitted. "From housekeeper to director in a year." "I can," Alexander said simply. "You changed everything, Rosa. Not just for me, but for thousands of our employees." As they walked, employees greeted them both with equal respect, the billionaire founder and the former maid who had become his most trusted advisor and, more recently, his closest friend. The truth that Rosa had revealed had done more than save Alexander from a disastrous marriage. It had reminded him of his mother's values, of the kind of company, and man, he truly wanted to be. "My mother would have adored you," he said as they reached the memorial garden planted in her honor. Rosa smiled, touching the plaque that bore his mother's favorite quote, "Courage is truth spoken with love." "I think we're building something she would be proud of," she replied. Alexander nodded. The Reed Foundation Gala filled the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Museum with New York's elite, but this time the atmosphere was different. Gone was the cold ostentation of Victoria's events, replaced by genuine warmth and purpose. The foundation, now co-chaired by Alexander and Rosa, had expanded its mission beyond traditional philanthropy to address systemic inequalities in education and healthcare. Rosa moved through the crowd in a simple but elegant emerald gown, a far cry from the uniform she'd worn when she first entered this world. Corporate leaders and politicians who had once overlooked her now sought her counsel. Her program providing educational opportunities for service workers had been adopted by companies across 3 continents. "Ms. Mendez, the Secretary of Labor is hoping for a moment of your time," an assistant informed her. "Of course," Rosa replied, still sometimes surprised by her new reality. Across the room, Alexander concluded a conversation with a group of tech executives. Their eyes met briefly over the crowd, a silent communication born of shared purpose and deepening connection. What had begun as respect had evolved into something neither had anticipated, a partnership of equals that transcended professional boundaries. Later that evening, they escaped to the museum's rooftop garden, the Manhattan skyline glittering around them. "The Guatemala Center is expanding again," Alexander said, loosening his tie. "Your mother's literacy program has a waiting list 300 names long." Rosa smiled. "She called yesterday. Said she never imagined at 65 she'd become a community leader. Like mother, like daughter. I was just a maid who saw something wrong and spoke up." Alexander shook his head. "You were never just anything, Rosa." The comfortable silence between them spoke volumes. Their journey from employer-employee to colleagues to friends had been unexpected. The romantic feelings developing between them were even more so, cautious, unspoken, but increasingly undeniable. "I've been thinking about my mother lately," Alexander said, gazing at the city lights. "About what she would think of all this." "She'd be proud of the man you've become," Rosa said softly. "The leader who values people over profit." "I had help finding my way back to her values." He turned to face her fully. "Rosa, I." She met his gaze steadily, no longer the intimidated housekeeper but a woman who knew her worth. "I know," she said simply. Their hands found each other's in the darkness, fingers intertwining. No grand declarations, no dramatic gestures, just truth, finally acknowledged. Back inside, the gala continued, but something fundamental had shifted. The billionaire and the former maid stood together at the podium to announce the foundation's new initiatives, their shared vision evident to everyone watching. 2 years ago, I lost my way, Alexander told the crowd. I forgot that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in human connection. In courage. In integrity. And we believe everyone deserves the opportunity to build that kind of wealth, Rosa continued, her voice strong and clear. To have their truth heard. To transform not just their own lives, but the lives of others. As applause filled the room, they exchanged a glance that held both their past and their future, a journey that had begun with a maid's courage to speak truth to power and had transformed into something neither could have imagined. The whispers around the room were no longer about scandal or corporate takeovers, but about the power of authentic connection to change lives, companies, and perhaps, in small but significant ways, the world itself. In the penthouse that had once been a battlefield of secrets and lies, photographs now lined the walls, Alexander's mother smiling from her hospital bed, Rosa's family in front of their new home in Guatemala, the Reed Foundation team breaking ground on community centers across 3 continents. The cold perfection of Victoria's design had been replaced by something warmer, more human, more real. And in the center, a new addition, Alexander and Rosa at the Guatemala Center opening, surrounded by children, both of them laughing. Not a billionaire and his former maid, but 2 people who had found in each other the courage to be their authentic selves. The truth had indeed changed everything. If you enjoyed this story of courage, transformation and finding authentic connection, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales that remind us how one person's bravery can change everything. Sometimes the most powerful people aren't those with wealth or status, but those with the courage to speak truth when it matters most.